Hey everyone, welcome back. As always, I look forward to talking to you all. ITIYL episode 16, 16. I will never get tired of saying what episode it is because it's a constant reminder of not only how much I like talking to you all, but just how far we've come. You know, sometimes you need to hear how far you've come. Don't let someone else tell you that what you've accomplished isn't good enough. Unless, of course, it's not good enough. If you're renting $700 a month, don't pay $5. Welcome back, everyone. Really appreciate you all tuning in. And this episode, man, I'm so excited to talk about it. And just to give you a little inside backstory on my week. So my week has been pretty hectic, and Tuesday and Wednesday is always stressful for me. And the reason for that is if I feel like I'm not passionate about the show's topic, or if I feel like I don't really have a good topic for the show, I kind of get like almost stressed out. I take pride in never really getting stressed out, but like I get really close to that point and I get a bit anxious because I'm like, oh, what am I going to talk about? Are you guys really going to want to listen? You know, I kind of beat myself up a bit and I kind of have this debate with myself. And I'm like, hey, look. The show is called I'll Talk If You'll Listen. People are listening, so I'm going to keep talking. And sometimes I don't really even need to talk about anything because that's the way like conversation just flows organically. You know, how many of us been, call up a friend and say, hey, this is going to be a 10-minute conversation and it turns to 2 hours? Or how many of us go to stop by a friend's house, or, maybe you hang out with a friend that day and then you go to leave and then you say bye like 5 times because you just had an extra hour-long conversation. So I really do genuinely feel like I'm in the car with all of you. I'm in the room with all of you. I'm right there next to you talking to you. And I feel like you guys are a part of the conversation just as much as I am. So I don't really always need to have something to talk about, but due to the idle thought segment, I've been re-inspired and re-motivated. So I actually changed the topic last second. I was going to talk about finance, and I'll talk about that a little bit, but I'm going to actually cover that on next week. So you guys get kind of a look into the future. Next week, I'm going to be talking about finance and some of the things that our generation in particular, and I think just most people, I got to get out of the habit of saying our generation, because although it is true to our generation, I think most people fall into certain categories about how to manage their money properly and about how everything else is the victim. The job is the victim, not their spending habits. But again, I'll get into that next week. I wanted to flip the script last minute. So I want to talk about a few things this week. I want to talk about just for a little bit, and I wasn't going to talk about it. But I was hanging out with a friend last night and the whole royal wedding conversation popped up. So I want to talk about that, but probably from an angle that you guys may not have heard yet, or at least haven't really heard much about. And I also want to talk about just mentorship and some of the things that the people who inspire you need to hear on a daily basis. So I can't wait to dive into that with you all. But before that, as always, we're going to start with the idle thoughts segment. So for those of you who are newer to the show, and for those of you who are just listening, I started a segment a few weeks back. I think episode 13 was my first episode that featured this segment called Idle Thoughts. And Idle Thoughts, as you know, ITIYL is an abbreviation of the show. The show's name is I'll Talk If You'll Listen. ITIYL is ITIYL, and I thought it'd be cool to come up with a segment where early on, the beginning of the show, beginning of the show's lifespan, I still do have the email addresses, but I had you guys email in, and you guys emailed into the show, and I read some of your responses on the show, and then eventually I started the show's Twitter, and then I would read a response on Twitter. Et cetera, et cetera. But I thought about it. I'm like, a lot of the people listening to the show are listening in the car ride, or they're listening at work, or they're listening when they're doing something around the house, and they don't have their email up on their laptop, or they don't have their personal email up at work, or they can't email from the work's email address, or, what have you. So I thought like, hey, how can I increase engagement? How can I increase listeners' feedback? And how can I increase just people wanting to hear other people's opinions? So I thought about having the idle thought segment. One, because it's a play on the word idle, like as in I just have an idle thought. But two, I thought it'd be cool for you all to come in and call in and express your thoughts to the show, so that way other people can get insight into what the way other people think. One thing I really take pride in, guys, is how open-minded I am, and you won't really hear me talk about myself too much in the sense of like bragging, unless when it comes to video games, because depending on the game, like Marvel versus Capcom 2, you can come see me. But just in general, I try not to brag, But one thing that I really take pride in is how open-minded I can be, and I really like to view all sides of the spectrum. I really like to view all sides of the argument. And I like to just hear a person's reasoning. If you think sherbet is better than ice cream, well, hey, tell me why. If you think, Checkers has the best fries, tell me why. If you think, Dave and Buster's the food isn't really that bad, tell me why. You're wrong. Dave and Buster's food is horrible. But at least tell me why. Like, tell me why you think that. So I really encourage an open-minded culture here on the show. So I try to get people in who share that open-mindedness, but I more specifically try to get people in who have had different life experiences and who can share different perspectives on what's going on in not only the current world, but just in their life too. So on this segment, this round of Idle Thoughts, we have someone who I used to work with. So former coworker, now current friend, by the name of Anton, aka Sweet Dog, and that's 2 G's because 2 is almost always better than 1. So Anton called in and he expressed his thoughts on some of the topics that we covered last week. One being of which I'm really passionate about, and it's the whole dating and courting scene when it comes to a man dating a woman. The general perception out there is that a man's time during the dating phase. Now, again, I just want to keep everybody in perspective here. This is not during the relationship. This is not during after the relationship has already started. This is not during a marriage. This is not during the point where you live together, you're in a committed relationship. This is the dating phase where you're still trying to figure somebody out. You're going on a couple of dates, or maybe this is the first date. And the perception during that time period is that a woman's time is worth more than a man's. The perception is, at least from the male perspective, I try to give perspective from what men think and what we feel. And generally speaking, from the man's perspective, during the dating and during the courting phase, is the woman's time was worth more. I have to impress her. I have to earn my date with her. I have to earn my second date with her. I have to pick her up. I have to approach her, etc. And to the women out there who think that this is something that doesn't currently happen, okay, it may not be true for your situation, but it is a general perception out there that most men, especially black men, feel. They feel like, hey, I have to earn this woman's time. I have to be the sole worker, the sole laborer when it comes to building this relationship. And the young lady, as fine as she is, she doesn't really have to work on anything. So there's a general perception out there. So Anton called in and he gave his thoughts and opinions on why that perception may be, and if it's even true. Here's Anton, aka Sweet Dog, and here's what he had to say.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's segment of Idle Thoughts. This time around, we have a really good friend of mine and a listener of the show as well, Anton, aka Sweet Dog, and that's Sweet Dog with 2 G's because 2 is almost always better than 1. So, hey, Ant, how's it going, man?
Yeah, yo, what's up, dog? How are you, man?
I'm great, man. I'm so excited to have you on for so many reasons, especially to talk about, some of the topics from last week. And without further ado, man, just to dive right on into it, because it's definitely something that I really want to get someone who has experienced this to touch base on it and give their opinion on it. And one of the topics was during the dating phase, during the courting phase, if you will, what women are taught to believe. And right now, the general perception amongst a lot of men is that women are taught to believe that their time is worth more than a man's during the dating phase, during the courting phase. A man has to impress the woman. A man has to, quote unquote, earn the second date. A man is required to have all these things. And if he doesn't have it, he has to go and get it and then come back to the table with it. He doesn't have a car, he has to get one, come back. He having his own place, he has to get one, come back. Meanwhile, the woman doesn't really have to work for anything. Her hardest job is just picking a guy who has all of these things. If if she's overweight, if she's a bigger woman and a guy doesn't like her, that's his problem. He just doesn't like bigger women. If she doesn't have her own place, she lives at home with his mother, with her mother, that's the guy's problem. She doesn't need to move out. If she, doesn't have long hair, if she has short hair, that's not really the guy's problem. That's not really her problem. It's the guy's problem. The guy should just accept her for who she is as a person. So the general question I wanted to ask you is, in your opinion, do you think women are taught or raised to believe that their time is more valuable than a man's during the courting or dating phase? And if so, why or why not?
I definitely think there's obviously a lot of discrepancies when it comes to what one is supposed to do during the courting phase. Being single, I've been single for like past year and a half. I've seen a lot. I've dealt with some women where it's not that big a difference, where like, they play the game a little bit differently, to where as though, you don't feel like you're doing backflips just to get that second date, and they basically will do nothing at all. Not even just, on an attempt to meet you halfway, to say, you know what, I like you, let me come here. It's always like, kind of like, oh, just keep doing this, and then maybe we can move forward. Yeah, women are definitely taught that their time is more valuable than men. And I don't know if this, it's a culture thing, like, maybe like a black community thing. That's weird. I haven't really talked about this with anybody ever, since I listened to the show, but it's like, it's almost like my time isn't valuable. Like, I gotta drop everything that I have to do to come, if you even, decide to go on a date with me, I got to make sure that my schedule accommodates you. It doesn't work the other way around, where I'm like, well, can you move some stuff around? It's like, nah, like, this is my day. It goes like this.
Now, Anton also mentioned a common hypocrisy that tends to happen, or a common contradiction that tends to happen when it comes to some women, emphasis on some. When it comes to just physical appearance, how, young ladies generally say, or at least the perception out there is like, hey, a guy has to look this way, a guy has to be this way, or hey, I wouldn't date this type of person. But a guy should accept me for who I am as a person. So here's what Anton had to say about that unique perspective.
I guess the thing for me is that with the changing times, especially, some of it might be politically charged, but the past few years, there's been a lot of narrative about, new wave feminism, just modern treatment of women, and a relationship between men and women, and guys being definitely a lot more open than our fathers and grandfathers used to be, and responsive to women's needs. Hopefully, in my eyes, with all this dialogue happening, that the playing field might be even in terms of like respect for one's time, expectations for some person. Because like you said, like, if the guy doesn't like a girl for this reason, then all of a sudden, it's not her problem, it's his problem. He just needs to deal with it to get over it. But I remember specifically watching a video a few months ago, and it was funny and kind of sad at the same time. So because they're asking charged questions, almost like they're asking stuff that they knew they was gonna get a certain response out of these women. They went up to these women and they were like, would you date a guy that's shorter than you? And the women were like, no. And they were laughing. They were like, no, I would never. Why would I do that? I wouldn't date a guy that's shorter than me. And they were like, yeah, but he can't change. A guy can't change anything about that. That's the way he is. And the chicks were like, nah, I couldn't do that. They thought it was comical. So then the guy, he waited a few seconds, and then he was like, all right, well, let's say a guy wanted to date a girl, but she weighed too much. Like, would you have a problem with like a guy wanting his girlfriend to weigh a certain amount? And almost every girl got super defensive. She's like, what are you talking about? That's not, you need to accept somebody for the way they are. You need to love somebody and appreciate somebody. But it's like, you just were saying that you would, you not necessarily discriminate, but you are, weeding out potential suitors based off of this arbitrary thing that's out of their hands. You know what I mean? certain things you just can't change. But then when the shoe's on the other foot for you, and it's like, can you just, if you're getting big, can you not be as big? And I don't want to make it seem like, I'm in particular like, I need women to be a certain size, but it is weird that it comes to anything with them.
Another topic covered on last week's show was the whole friendship topic and what makes a friend a friend. And I talked about how there are two different things that usually factor into how long you keep somebody around, and it's time spent and favors done. So, hey, can you rely on this person to do things for you? When you call them up because you need something, whether it be a ride to work, whether it be a trip to the hospital, whether it be a loan to cover something that you missed out on, or even if it's just for general support. Hey, I need some advice, things like that. Can you call somebody up and can they be there for you? Then you got time spent. Time spent are things like, hey, how often do you hang out? How often do you talk on the phone? How often do you go places together? Things like that. And here's what Anton had to say about what makes a friendship a friendship.
Well, yeah, sometimes it's just lifestyle, right? So you could have friends with people. You could be friends with somebody because you grew up on the same street, you're from the same neighborhood or whatever. And when you were going to school and doing certain things, you guys were living the same life. You were going to school, coming home, doing homework, and you were coming outside and hitting the streets and doing all these different things. Especially in adult life, when you get out of college or whatever, and now it's just like I have my job, and the time that you have to yourself is so much more important to you because you're used to working, or even if you go back to school or whatever, it's like you're learning so much about yourself, right? So you're learning things that you really like, that you really appreciate, and sometimes your friends are just like, yeah, I don't like that, and it starts off small where it's like. For me, as an example, it's like, yeah, me and my friends, we don't like the same rappers. Like, they really like Lil Wayne. I really like MF Doom. And then it turns into, well, I don't go to those same clubs that they go to because they don't play the music I like, or, it's not my scene. I mean, they like the Riverview, or they like Drake Night, and I like the Saint or the Barbary or something. And it's just, it just builds over time where it's like, you might, I guess some of the value in friendship could be time, and then some of it can just be, vested interest. Like I like this person because we like all of the same things, and I'm gonna make an effort to be good friends with them. But on the same token, or on the other side, it's like I've been around this person since I was a kid, so it's almost like it doesn't even really matter. They're like the family of your friends, you know what I mean? Like, you can have friends that have come in and out of your life for short periods of time. But the friends that have been there for a while kind of take a different role, you know what I mean? They're almost not even the same. They turn into like your cousins or something, where like you expect certain things out of them because you got the time in. You start a friendship based off of one of those two things, time or like what they can do for you, but then it has subconsciously it transitions out of that into being just like, as long as I'm gonna be alive, this person is gonna be in my life in some way, shape, or fashion. It might not be in the way that I want it to be. They might not be able to do the things for me that they used to, but it's love, man. I love that person. Like I had a buddy. I have buddies who I rarely see, who like we don't work together, we don't live on the same street anymore, and if I call him, I might not even be able to talk to him for long because our schedules don't match up. But we've kind of transitioned out of the time or favorites thing where it's just like, I'm just happy that this guy is still around. And maybe it's because coming from a rough neighborhood where, Pete, you could lose somebody quick. I personally, in the past year, have had 5 people close to me just gone. Some of them are, street related or, violence related, and some of them are just life. Like, people just don't wake up. And, you gotta find that space, like, in the middle where you could say, man, this person doesn't do either one of these things, but you know, they're kind of family now. You know what I mean?
Now, another reason I wanted to have Anton on the show is Anton actually has his own show. He has two of them, in fact, a little bit more experience in the whole podcasting and broadcasting realm than I do. So Anton has a radio show called Uptown Social Club. He also has a podcast called Sweet Dog and Friends, where he talks about some of the things that I talk about, just with a group of friends. So here's Anton expanding a little bit more on his two shows.
The name of my radio show is Uptown Social Club, formerly known as Hip Hop History to anybody who's been listening for more than a few months. It started out about a year ago. Your boy Sweet Dog was in bars in Brewery Town and Fishtown, getting into very heated arguments, shouting matches with white people about hip hop. And not just white people, you know, young black people too, who think that Lil Wayne is the second coming of Biggie Smalls, and people who just didn't understand hip hop. I consider myself like a hip hop sommelier. You know how like when you go to a restaurant and this guy pairs the wine with the fish, I pair the beats to your life. So, you know, that's Thursdays at 9 p.m. to 11 on 92.9 FM or gtownradio.com. Or if you can't listen live, I put them up on SoundCloud usually like the next day or within 2 days. And then I have a podcast called Sweet Dog and Friends where I, Sweet Dog, just talk to my friends about whatever. And that's on my SoundCloud too. And I'm trying to start creating more content with that weekly. But that's just me talking to my friends about anything. Life, what's been going on with them, pop culture, sports, or just, you know, farts, burps, anything.
Okay, so as you can hear, it was a little bit of reception trouble. So some of the audio clipping kind of interfered with some of what he said. But again, that's Uptown Social Club. You can listen to that on gtownradio.com. And he also has a podcast called Sweet Dog and Friends. So look out for that. Thank you so much, Anton, for coming into the show. Now, my next guest is someone that I was also excited to have on. And although we haven't interacted too often, we have known each other for quite some time now. And I was really excited to have her on because I needed a young lady's opinion on the whole dating and courting scene. So here's Paige, again, a good friend of mine, former coworker, on what it's like for women and men, or at least how it should be. Paige also gave some specific feedback for the people who do say, yes, a woman's time is worth more than a man's. And yes, a woman should not work as hard as a man does when it comes to the dating and courting phase. Again, here's Paige.
Well, as far as that whole perception, I think that's such a jaded and archaic concept now. Things are different than, you know, when our parents or our grandparents were dating, where you had to be back by a certain time and certain things were taboo, so kissing on the first date maybe, or sex before marriage. You know, things change and the times change, and relationships are more of a partnership now than they ever have been. Women aren't property. Men aren't just money. You know, marriages aren't arranged by our parents anymore. We're not paying dowries. All sorts of things are completely lost factors now. So we really shouldn't be thinking with that same mindset. It's supposed to be more of an equal partnership. So you both play as equal a role in impressing one another and being your best selves. And it's hard. I know on the show last week you were talking about is a woman's time worth more than a man's time during the whole courting phase. And I think that's an archaic concept, and I really think if the woman is a decent human being and if they're being raised properly, hanging with the right crowd, then they'll recognize, no, I'm not any better than the next person. I don't deserve more time. One of the things that your show last week made me think of was that post going around about when a guy and a girl sitting in the car eating chicken nuggets from McDonald's, and girls were like, this is not a date. It's absolutely a date. sitting in the park talking can be a date. Going to a fancy restaurant can be a date. Like, you're not above that. As long as you're having a good time and connecting emotionally with that other individual, anything can be a date. And so I really don't feel like a woman's time is worth more than a man's time. And I don't feel that that's a fair concept that the man has to do everything, especially in the age of feminism and all of these different movements going on right now, where we're fighting for equality between men and women, and we're fighting for men to be allowed to be vulnerable and be more emotional, while women are regarded as more than just property or a body or any of those things. So really, I think that's an archaic concept.
Paige also touched on the topic of friendship, and she gave some really heartfelt and warming advice when it comes to friendship and what a friendship should be about, and gave some advice for people who feels like friendship is only based on favors done or time spent.
One of the main core values of friendship is that interest in expanding your horizons and learning anything you can about another individual and being genuinely interested in it. So having that common ground and then wanting to grow and learn based off somebody else's experiences. I think that's really what's going to set the foundation for a good friendship. Obviously, being upfront and honest and always having those real, raw, honest conversations with one another. Show your vulnerability, show your loyalty. Those are things that help solidify the foundation and build that wall of friendship over years, over time. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is a great friendship. So you have to work at it, and you have to put in constant effort. And it stinks because you build these friendships at the most crucial time in your life, and you're the most valuable, and you're learning the most, and you're shaping who you are, and you're figuring out where you belong, and what your style is, and what your interests are, and what path you're going to head down in your life. And you guys might find yourself aligning in different paths. Well, then, you leave the safety net of high school and you're out in the real world and you're an adult. And some people go to college and some people don't. And that's already going to cause some strain on a relationship, because for those that aren't going to college, they don't understand the busy schedule of being in college or having to do work. For those that aren't in college, then they start to resent because they've got, 4 or 5 different projects. Finals are coming up, the stress is high, and, you're thinking, oh, well, they're just sitting on their butt, they're not doing anything, so who are they to yell at me that I don't spend enough time with them? And that causes some tension. As we grow up and we get jobs, we work more, we see each other less, and then it becomes that perpetual, oh, we should hang out soon, but then you never hang out soon. So you just really have to work at it and make that conscientious effort to break the mold and make the time and be understanding of another individual and their situation or their experiences, and force yourself to make that time and that commitment to that individual in order to keep that friendship going.
Awesome stuff there from Paige. Now, Paige hasn't been listening too long, but she did get a good concept on some of the show's topics and what the show is about and how we encouraged open-mindedness. And Paige had a really good topic that she would like to hear from in the future, and something that will get brought up very, very soon. Again, here's Paige.
I haven't had the chance to listen to any of your podcasts yet, so I'm not sure what you have and have not covered, but two of the topics that I think I'm most interested in hearing other people's viewpoints, because I struggle with them a lot. Number one being, you always hear the saying, be the change you want to see in the world. But in this day and age where we have, people hiding behind keyboards and saying nasty things and tearing each other down, and, governments that are super outrageous and tearing down citizens and saying all kinds of things to project this awful, hateful attitude towards one another. How do you overcome all of that to be the change that you want to see in the world? How do you keep yourself from being so demoralized to the point where you don't even want to leave the house to make a change, to be a better person, to help somebody else. How do you get past that? And then the other one that I was interested in hearing is, how do you break your mold and grow and acknowledge, especially in times of such hot political debate and the back and forth and, nations divided and so on and so forth. How do you train yourself to be the bigger person and walk away? How do you approach things constructively? How do you listen with an open mind? How do you not get heated and start an argument? And you see all too well people, especially on Facebook or Twitter or whatever the case may be, social media in general, people just going guns blazing and they'll start tearing each other down and, saying all sorts of mean things and attacking their appearance and their character when they don't even know that individual, just to prove their point. So how do we combat that, and how do we as a whole change ourselves to be more tolerant and accepting and understanding, to hear another person's viewpoint and have that constructive conversation?
Paige, thank you so much. This interview has been great. It's been very inspiring and motivating, and I can't tell you how good it is to hear from you. And I look forward to hopefully, a few weeks down the line, a few episodes down the line, especially when you get, become settled into the show. I would love to have you back on to maybe even discuss a topic that you suggested. I think that would be pretty cool.
Well, thank you for having me on. It was really good hearing from you. Please don't be a stranger, and I would love to come back on. I'm really excited now that I have them on. I'm really excited to hear everything that you have to say and learn and grow from other opinions the way that I always have every time that you talk. So I'm really excited to hear what you've got for me. So
again, good stuff there from Paige. Paige, thank you so much. I was really excited to hear from you. It's been a bit since we've talked, and I can't wait to talk to you in the future and just to check up on you and see how things going and see if that, making sure that you're healthy and the like. So I can't wait to talk to you in the future. And I always enjoy speaking to old friends. Now, one thing that Paige brought up during the conversation that really inspired me and definitely will influence today's topic, which is mentorship. So Paige and I used to work together, and I was in a mentorship role, and I definitely took ownership of that role, and I took pride in the people that I came in contact with, and I wanted to help them to the best of my ability. And Paige let me know how important that was for her when we worked together, and it definitely inspired me to say this. Whoever is your mentor in your life, whether it be a parent, whether it be an uncle or aunt, whether it be a cousin, a sibling, whether it be a coworker, whether it be a supervisor, whomever it is, an older friend, whomever it is, reach out to them and just tell them thank you. Just tell them thank you. Just tell them that you're grateful for everything that they've taught you or shown you. And they need to hear it. It's really important. They really do. They need to hear it. And you'd be surprised how happy you can make somebody with just a simple thank you. And you never know what type of week they had. As soon as I got off the phone with Paige, I called up one of my mentors and I spoke with him for a bit. And I just told him, hey, thank you. He's been a huge impact on my life. And he's inspired me and motivated me in more ways than he knows. And even to this day, I say quotes of his that he's said to me in the past. And he said it's the best call that he's gotten all week. And that just goes to show you never know what someone's going through. You never know when someone's experiencing a low. Just imagine, when, your mom or your dad, just tried to get you something and they couldn't do it and they're just stressing out right now. If you just called them up and just said, hey, thank you. I appreciate everything you've done for me. Or if a supervisor, a supervisor may just be going through a low point right now and may feel like things are crumbling around them and may think that, they're super overwhelmed and super stressed. And you call them up, whether it be someone who's currently your supervisor or someone who you worked with in the past, and you call them up and you say, hey, just thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being you. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for motivating me. Thank you for getting me over the hump. Thank you for getting me to where I'm at now. I really appreciate everything that you've done for me. And you never know, that could be the best phone call they get. That could really lift them out there. That could really give them some inspiration and just give them the thought process of like, hey, things may seem like they're bad right now, but there's hope. And there's nothing like giving somebody hope. It really is. Realistically, anyway, there's nothing like giving somebody hope. So again, guys, make that phone call. Make that phone call. Make that text. A phone call would be more impactful. And just have that face-to-face conversation. You know, how many of us have coworkers and team members that are really there when we need them to be? Whether they step in and pick up the slack, whether they step in and help us with a project that we're working on, whether they step in and just help with the workload. Just tell them thank you. Sometimes, in fact, oftentimes, their work and their good deeds gets overlooked. So it's really important that we let them know that, hey, we really appreciate them and to keep them motivated just like they've been motivating us. Another thing that, again, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't really want to talk about too much, but the whole conversation came up last night and it gave me some thoughts on the whole topic. So the royal wedding. As you know, Meghan Markle, I believe her name is, and Prince Harry got married this past weekend, and it was a whole lot of hoopla about it. And I'm going to keep it real with you guys. I don't care. Stuff like that really doesn't bother me. Now, if I was on a guest list, I would go. Clearly, if I was on a guest list for someone who's getting married, even if I didn't know them or care about them, I definitely would go. But I just didn't care. So I didn't watch it. I stayed out of the news about it, the whole nine. But it kind of, I was talking with a friend last night about how, these two met. And it got me to thinking about these two, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, about like how these two met. And I'm going to be really, really honest with you all, okay? I know almost nothing about these two. So if anyone could provide me some insight, that'd be great. Now, a part of me started to do some research, and I'll be, again, really, really honest with you all. A part of me started to do some research, do some homework before I recorded the show, just so I can come to the game with a little bit of knowledge. But I didn't feel like that felt genuine. I wanted to really seem like organic in my knowledge, my current knowledge. And I really wanted to come off as genuine in my question. So that way some of you all can kind of like just not only see where I'm coming from, but just help me out, help me to understand. But, I wondered like how these two met. I was told by a friend that these two met on a blind date. So a few things going on there. First things first, who just randomly sets somebody up with a prince? Now let's take a look at Meghan, right? Meghan's this one young woman, and I don't know what she's accomplished or where her accolades are. So I don't want to take anything away from her, and I don't want to paint this picture like she's just an average Joe. But she's this woman who, first of all, she's an American. She was born and raised in Oakland. She was previously divorced. She's biracial, and she got set up on a blind date with a prince, a literal prince, not on some fantasy bullcrap, on some Disney bullcrap, like legitimately a prince who has an inheritance, who is royalty of another country. So it's just like really weird that like who just knows. That's like me setting you guys up with a blind date with like Donald Glover or a blind date with like Will Smith or something. You can like, Tim, how do you know these people? You're like, how did you meet these people? Why do you know these people? How come I don't know you know these people? And finally, you got so much clout and such a good relationship with this person that you can just call them up like, hey, I got somebody for you. It's a blind date. Like, that's crazy to me. Who did Meghan fall in with to set up this blind date? It's pretty crazy. And then I got to thinking like about her family. Her family is a bit divided. And I know I think it's like her half brother or something along those lines is kind of like a rough guy, so to speak, or has had a history of, some, let's just say rough and or questionable behavior. Her mother is just, a run-of-the-mill young lady, who is, she's apparently like a social worker. So when you take that, and can you imagine how inferior you may feel at a wedding? Think about that. That's like you having an average run-of-the-mill job, regardless of what it is. Whether it be you're working in fast food, you're working in retail, you're working in the serving industry, you're working in, an office space type of environment, and you get set up with like Jennifer Lawrence, or you get set up with like Will Ferrell or something like that, and all of a sudden, like, you're at the wedding. Can you imagine all of the people that's going to be at his wedding? And even still, that's not even a good example, because these people still, even though they're famous, they're actors, they're celebrities, and they know some famous people, and they're going to be famous people at their wedding. They still were once normal, average people. So they're going to have people like that are friends with. Think about Drake's friends. Some of Drake's friends are probably just normal, average day people that he just has around him. You know what I mean? And you know, he's famous, but his friends aren't. So that's normal. So even if you're like at a Drake wedding, or like at a Jennifer Lawrence wedding, or like a Jennifer Lopez wedding or something like that, will there be famous people there? Absolutely. But there's going to be average Joes there too. There's going to be people you can find and relate with. Meghan got married to royalty. Can you imagine the star status of the people at this wedding? I'm talking other royal people. I'm talking other royal family members. I'm talking like important political figures. I'm talking members of parliament. I'm talking other important governmental heads. I'm talking like significant people here. And then you got the mother, who's a social worker, and Meghan, who knows what she does or what she did. Again, I don't know much about the situation. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being at that wedding? How awkward that would be. A part of me feels sorry for them. Like, geez. And then on the other hand of it, I feel kind of like I understand the skepticism from the royal family. Now, I don't agree with the racist undertone and the old school traditionalist undertone of who she is as a person, and how Prince Harry can't date who she is as a person. But if you take the racial, thing out of it and you just look at it from the outside looking in, here's what I'm saying. And some of you might disagree with me, but I would be skeptical too. If I was Prince Harry's older brother, if I was Prince Harry's father, if I was Prince Harry's uncle, if I was a relative of Prince Harry's, or even a good friend, I'm going to sit here and look like, dude, like, does she really love you? Like, who is this woman? Like, let's say I'm a distant relative or whatever the case may be, or I'm a friend, and I don't really know much about your dating life or your romantic life. And apparently they've been together for a bit. So, there's that. So I'm sure she had opportunity where she met friends and family. But just let me paint this picture for you all. Like, just look at it from the outside looking in, right? Your best friend is royalty. Legitimately royalty. Like, not super famous, but an actual member of the crown, right? He or she links up with this person from like Detroit, who has been divorced, who is not even from the same country as you, who has no royal blood whatsoever, has just an average run-of-the-mill lifestyle, who has an average run-of-the-mill family. Would you or would you not be skeptical? I would be skeptical. I'm keeping it real. You guys can come up with this whole argument of, oh, you shouldn't judge a person before you get to know them, and you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, or she's a good person, or you don't have to have this status to have this type of lifestyle. And I agree with you to an extent, but again, you got to put the shoe on the other foot. Look at it from a perspective. Hell, look, a lot of us are average Joes now. How many of you are skeptical with the person that your friend is dating now? How many of you are skeptical with the person, or skeptical of the person, or suspicious of the person that a friend or family member is dating now? Because you question certain things. Hey, where did this person come from? They came out of the woodworks. They came out of nowhere. Or how did this person even fall in with this person? So you got to imagine there. I see a few people out there that's like really proud of Meghan, and they should be. You take somebody from where she's come from and looked at where she's at now. Whether she's spinning or whether she's genuine in her love for Prince Harry, give her credit. She's got to where she's gotten to now. But you got to take a look at it. Like, as a royal family member, I would definitely be suspicious. I would. If I was Prince Timothy IV and my brother Prince Josiah, because he probably has an exotic old school name like that. Prince Josiah is like on the dating scene. And, he's like he goes to a local bar or in Britain, probably a local pub, and he, is with his buddies, and, his buddy's like, hey, I'm going to set you up with a blind date with somebody that I know. You're like, okay, I would have some questions. I almost slipped up and cursed there. I would have some questions. I would, my buddy's like, hey, I would turn to like Dick Tracy, I would turn to Bruce Wayne, and I would just be like the greatest detective in the world. If somebody's like, hey man, I got somebody up for you, I'm like, okay, cool. Where's she from? Who is she? What is she about? And she's like, she's from Detroit. Like, oh, okay. Like a suburb of Detroit? No, like 8 Mile, like across the street from Eminem. Like, she went to high school with Marshall Mathers. And I'm like, nah, no thank you. If I'm a Prince. And you can say what you want about that. You can call it being shallow. You can call it being judgmental. But that's my right. And I hate the people that come out there and say, oh, you shouldn't judge. That's my right. Okay. I can judge if I want to. But I'm going to keep it real. If I know I'm a Prince, it's one thing if you bump into a young lady at the bar, or if you deliberately put effort into meeting the young lady, like by chance, like, you meet her at the local diner, you meet her at the local coffee shop. She's a friend of the family. She's a friend of a friend. Okay. That's different. And I know you got to expose yourself to new scenes. But if my friend, no matter how much I trust this guy, is trying to hook me up with somebody who is like totally left field, I'm going to just shut it down. I'm going to shut it down before it even gets started. You know what I mean? And, not to knock Meghan. Again, congratulations, all the power to her. I'm just saying, like, it's easy for people to be suspicious of that. I mean, just think of, and I just feel like, again, like, just so awkward, like, for her mother. Like, there were photos of her mother going around, and even memes, because of the internet. Memes were going around of her mother just sitting there, like, looking like miserable. Now a lot of people were just saying, like, oh, that's just typical older black woman face. And it can be. There's some older black women who are having the time of their lives, but it looks like they just murdered a cat. They're just sitting there, like, just like stone cold, very, very stern and strict looking. So there's that. But at the same time, she could have just felt awkward, out of place. I know I would. If I was like the brother of the woman or of the man getting married to royalty, and I'm at the wedding, and they're like, oh, where you work at? And I'm like, oh, I work at a storage company, or I work at a paper company, or, hey, I work at Best Buy. Like, I shouldn't feel ashamed of that. It's not my fault that I'm not royalty, but at the same time, you can only imagine how awkward that is. Can you imagine talking to somebody who owns like a country? They own like a huge estate. They have like a ton of people working for them. They donated hundreds of millions of dollars to charity, and you're sharing a pew with them in a church because their son is marrying your daughter. It's like unreal. I can only imagine. It's unreal. So I just want to get you guys' thoughts on that. Would you feel out of place in that situation? Would you feel like you don't belong? Have you ever been in a situation like that where you felt out of place or like you didn't belong? I had the benefit, because I wasn't popular growing up, I had to put effort into forming relationships and perpetuating the relationships that I've already formed. So I kind of could blend in with any crowd. I could blend in with the troublemakers. I could blend in with the nerds. I could blend in with the jocks. I can blend in with any crowd. And even if I didn't necessarily fit in my mind, like personally, I looked like I did. Like, even with the guys who would go on the basketball court and shoot around, I would shoot around with them. I wouldn't play though, but I would shoot around with them. And I would always have people coming up to me like, hey, do you want to get in the game? Because they felt like, this guy looks like he knows how to play ball. And I would just go, no, I'm okay. I'll just sit on the side and watch you guys. I'm not ready, So even if I didn't felt like I fit in, I looked like I fit in. If you look at the wedding, sometimes you'll spot people that just straight up look like they didn't fit in, So my question for you all is, have you ever been in that situation? Have you ever been with like maybe a friend from the neighborhood who is still stuck in a certain street mentality, but that's still your friend, so you still hang around them, but they hang around some questionable folk? Have you ever been with someone who lives a higher lifestyle, a higher class? I'm talking about the people who shop at Bloomingdale's for fun, the people who shop at the Gucci store, the people who wear Versace and all this other stuff like it's nothing. And they live a quote unquote lavish lifestyle. They have expensive hundreds of dollar bottles of champagne or or wine, and you just feel out of place. The closest I ever been like that experience for me, I remember growing up, a really good friend of mine that I grew up with, I was actually raised to believe that he was my cousin. And I didn't find out until I was basically a teenager that he wasn't really my cousin. But when you've lived like basically 15 years with someone being your cousin, that's your cousin. You know what I mean? But I remember going over a good friend of mine's house to his actual uncle's house. And we were there, and it was a beautiful house out in Lansdale, PA. So it's in Montgomery County, PA. If you're not familiar with the Pennsylvania area, the Pennsylvania area, it's basically a suburb of Philadelphia. And I remember going into that house and just going, wow, I do not belong here. That house was huge. It was beautiful. And you figure I'm like a 16, 17-year-old kid at the time. The house was beautiful. The lawn was great. There was a big open backyard that we could actually play football and other sports in. And towards the end of the night, I was tasked with the chore of taking the trash out, even though I was a guest, because Black parents. So I took the trash out, and I remember taking the trash from the side of the house to the end of the driveway and just feeling like I was in Wonderland. The only light was the light of the moon, and I'm not even exaggerating. It was literally just the moonlight. And I remember feeling out of place and out of presence, like, geez, like I don't belong here. Like there's going to be a wolf or like a deer to come out of nowhere and like spear me or bite my leg off or something because it's so dark out here. And I kind of hurry up and scurry back into the house because I was legitimately like fearful, like it's too dark out here. And that was like normal to them, So I just felt like I felt out of place. Has that ever happened to you guys? Have you ever been in a situation where you felt out of place, or have you ever been in a situation where you didn't bring somebody around because out of fear of them feeling out of place, so you intentionally didn't invite them somewhere? Let me know. Reach out, guys. Again, if you're newer to the show, you can reach out to me at owltalk, if you'll listen, at hotmail.com. So the name of the show, no apostrophes. Or you can reach out to me at Twitter, ITIYL _ITIYL on Twitter. So basically the show's initials twice, separated by an underscore. The YouTube page is coming along. You can go on over to the YouTube page and leave a comment in the comment section on one of the videos, and I'll respond as soon as I can. Or you can sign up for a Spreaker membership, guys. The web host that I use to distribute my podcast is called Spreaker. So that's like speaker, but with an R after the P, SPREAKER. You can go there, sign up for a free membership. It's just like creating a Facebook, but for podcasts. And you can follow me on Spreaker. And from there, you can do things like an episode, leave feedback for an episode, and even leave comments on the episode, and I'll respond to the comment immediately. You'll also get notifications as soon as the show goes live, if you aren't already subscribed on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. So big things in the works too, guys, coming soon. I got some good news coming soon that I'm really excited about. And I'm also taking somewhat of an unofficial poll for what the YouTube page should be. Like you guys have heard me mention in the past, the YouTube page right now is basically for newer listeners to the show who are just diving in at like episode 10, 11, 12, and they want to hear what the previous episodes were like, and just to hear the evolution of the show, what it was like before Idle Thoughts, what it was like before the music, what it was like before the editing of the show got to where it is now. They can go on over to YouTube and check that out. But I want to create some unique content for loyal listeners of the show who've been around for a bit. I want to create a reason for you guys to actually go to the YouTube page. And I've been toying around with some ideas from actual live interviews, from even like street interviews, from going around interview people on the street for topics that are covered in the show. And I just want to get, you guys' opinion on what would you like to see? What would you like to hear on the YouTube page? How can that grow? How can that evolve? And just let me know what you guys think. I really appreciate it if you guys reach out. And another thing that I wanted to cover. So a friend of mine actually shot me a ton of content that they like, a lot of different thoughts that they had listening to a couple of the show's episodes. I believe specifically episode 14 and 15. So they're at work just typing away. It was on the weekend. It was during some overtime. So it was kind of like lighthearted. And they're just typing away at a whole bunch of thoughts. You want to talk about idle thoughts. A whole bunch of thoughts on some of the show's topics. And when I say my friend went in, my friend went in. So my friend Dell reached out to me and sent me everything that he was thinking about while listening to the show. And it was a lot of stuff, so I had to select certain parts of it just to read it. And I wanted to speak on a specific thing. Now, earlier in the show, just to come back full circle, we talked about the perception. And I want to really drive home the thought. There are going to be a lot of young ladies out there who disagree with a lot of perceptions that are out there because they think it's false. They think it's a false narrative. They believe like, oh, men are just whining and men are coming up and creating this thing that doesn't exist. Or women will do a thing where, and I'm generalizing, so for the women out there who this doesn't fit, don't bite my head off. But you'll have women, and even men too, who will discount a perception or discount someone's opinion just because they haven't experienced it. So in other words, when men sit here and say, oh, women feel entitled to a man's time during X, Y, and Z, or if they sit here and say, oh, black women don't like nerds and they don't flock to nerds, a woman to discount that because they'll go, oh, that's not true because I like nerds, or that's not true because I actually approach men. So they'll discount the whole perception and the whole opinion because they don't fit the description, they don't fit the mold. But I want to sit here and tell you that that's not the case. And Dell is a prime example of that. My friend Dell sent me this, basically a memoir of the perception that, during the dating phase and during the courting phase, it's generally perceived that a woman's time is worth more than a man's. So I'm going to read this, and hopefully I don't mess this up. I'm going to read a specific part about it. And I do apologize if this is scattered because it's kind of like just scattered thoughts that he had that he kind of put this together. But some of what he said here. So he encountered the situation. Something I'm just going to try to paraphrase here and read what he says. What he said. He said, this brings me back to a previous statement, and I'm picking up kind of like in the middle of the sentence here because, again, it's really, really long. So he said, this brings me back to a previous statement of women saying things like, he can't handle me and, quote unquote, he wasn't man enough. While many women do still have the mindset of what a man needs to be, like a car, house, career, things like that, just because a man may be well off financially doesn't mean he is matured emotionally or spiritually. This also comes back to balance. While yes, a man is supposed to be there to build up the woman in his life, shouldn't she do the same? Though us men, especially black men, are taught to be strong, and some may even go as far as to say that showing emotion is showing weakness, we are not stone titans. We get down and low sometimes as well. So do we not deserve to be built back up? Are our thoughts and feelings and desires deemed unworthy simply because we are men? In my opinion, it is balance. A man cannot always lift you up if he himself is sinking. Balance. Help each other up in all aspects to build and to grow together starts with communication. He also says, I covered this earlier, but to answer one of your questions, I feel like women feel they don't have to work for a man's time and the man has to pursue them because of society. In all forms of media, television, books, movies, etc., the man is always chasing the woman. So a young woman sees that over time and embraces it. So many young women are taught that boys just want to get in their pants, and thus many grow up to, quote unquote, test a man, for lack of a better word. I've legit had female friends tell me they put some guys through hell just to see if they will stay / aren't just in it for sex. So I feel it is a learned culture from society as well as a defense mechanism instilled into their brains. So Dell touched on 2 points there that I want to call out, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. One point is that, yes, women are taught from an early age that when men are just in it for sexual reasons, and they're taught to keep their head on a swivel and be really defensive. So there are some young ladies out there who make a man, quote unquote, work for it, and a man does have to work harder for it. But he also touches on about balance. I think he makes a really good point that men are kind of expected to be this rock, but sometimes the rock has a chip in it. We need the woman to help fill that chip and be our support system as well. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts on some of what Dell has to say, and feel free to send things in just like Dell did. And look, although I do have the idle thoughts segment, and although I did create the show's Twitter, you can be old school and email in too. Email in or text me, message me on Facebook if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, and just go from there. So again, I would really like to hear you guys' thoughts and opinion on some of what Dell had to say. I really look forward to hearing from you guys. And I just want to say, guys, again, thank you for listening. I really, really do mean that. I really mean that from my heart. I'm just an average Joe type of guy. And it really warms my heart to know that there's people out there that actually want to hear what I have to say. So I really just want to say thank you. Take the time to say thank you. And another way I want to say thank you, huge news, guys. So I promised you in the past, once we reach 500 downloads, I'll do another ITIYL gift card giveaway like I did with 300 downloads. I'm really, really happy and excited to say, at the time of this recording, we're at 513 downloads for the show. You heard that right, 513 downloads for the show. I'm so excited. I'm so happy. And more importantly, I'm extremely humbled. So in celebration and as promised, I'm going to do another ITIYL gift card giveaway. So here are the details, and here's how you can participate. First things first, it's to celebrate surpassing 500 downloads of the show. And it's going to be a $20 gift card to whatever you'd like. Now, our last ITIYL gift card giveaway winner, Amanda, who's been a listener of the show, opted for a $20 Amazon gift card, which was really easy for me because I could just email that to her. I didn't have to worry about dropping it off. But whoever wins the ITIYL gift card giveaway, you can simply just tell me what type of gift card you want. If I can't link up with you, I'll just mail it to you. And if it's a digital gift card, I'm talking Target, I'm talking Walmart, I'm talking Amazon, I can just email it to you. And that would be really beneficial for me because it'll save you on some time and it'll save me on some time. So here's how you can participate. Tell me what your favorite episode is and why. So just like the first ITIYL gift card giveaway, I'm taking it back to the roots. Just tell me what your favorite episode is and why. Here's how you can get entered in. And again, just for clarification, guys, this is a giveaway. You do not have to buy into this. This is not a raffle. You don't have to pay me any money. You don't have to pay to participate. You simply just have to participate. So if you decide to do it via email, you'll just email into the show, I'll talk if you'll listen at hotmail.com. Just title the show's subject, just title the subject line, ITIYL gift card giveaway, and then just tell me what your favorite episode is and why. It doesn't have to be a long, intricate answer, although I do encourage you to do that so I can read it. I really like to hear what you guys have to say. But it can just be simply say, hey, I think episode 13 was the best, and it's because it was your first ITIYL thought segment. It doesn't have to be super crazy. So you can just email into the show, again, ITIYL gift card giveaway for the subject line, and just tell me what your favorite episode is and why. If you want to participate in Twitter, you can just DM me on Twitter, tell me what your favorite episode is or why, or you can mention me on Twitter with the hashtag ITIYL gift card giveaway, or you don't even have to mention me. You can just hashtag ITIYL gift card giveaway, and that's going to be ITIYL gift card giveaway, and just tell me what your favorite episode is and why. When it comes time to select the winner, I'll just search for the hashtag ITIYL gift card giveaway on Twitter, so that way I can get the people who participated on Twitter. Finally, you can go and leave a comment on YouTube. You can go to the YouTube page. You can leave a comment. And if the episode that you listen to isn't up on YouTube, you can just tell me what episode your favorite episode is so far. And just leave a comment on the YouTube page of what your favorite episode is or why. You can do the same thing with Spreaker. Go to Spreaker. Go to, create a profile if you haven't already and leave a comment on the show. Tell me what your favorite episode is and why. And there you have it, guys. ITIYL gift card giveaway. It'll be a $20 gift card giveaway. This is going to be a 2-week period thing. So you'll have 2 weeks to, so that's going to be 2 episodes. So it's going to be this episode right now, the one you're listening to, and it's going to be the following week's episode 17, to participate in the gift card giveaway. So, I just wanted you to, have an opportunity to feel like that, the time you spent listening to the show is worth it. And I genuinely do appreciate it. I also appreciate some of the reviews, guys. I'm happy to say that I have a 5-star rating at the time of this recording on iTunes. I really appreciate all of the feedback you guys have been giving me. And I know it's not 5-star material. I know it's not 5-star quality. I know a lot of you are just being generous, but I really do appreciate it. And it gives me motivation to constantly improve. And it gives me some honest, open, unsolicited feedback. So feel free to leave me some comments and some feedback on either Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Play, or iTunes. I do read the comments. It warms my heart. And I take the feedback very, very critically. I once had a friend tell me who listens to the show that my audio quality needs some work. So I took that to heart. I had another friend give me some other feedback on some verbal cues, and I really took that to heart. So I really do listen, guys. I do. So I know when I talk, you all listen, but I listen to you all too. So I appreciate the feedback. Well, I'm going to get going, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in another week. I can't wait to talk to you all in person, to talk to you all over the internet, and to talk to you all next week. In the meantime, I'll keep talking if you'll listen. Take care.